point. I generally don't make it, but I did it in case I'm interested. And you'll see my email if the audience have any interest in looking at it more closely, and they can do it. But I'm doing it, and so I have 30 minutes, right? Can you pop on? I have 30 minutes. So it's this time actually for warming up, but anyway, let's see. And because it's the topic, I'm dealing with three important concepts here. That is, see, the migrant population or migration, and the COVID-19, and the diplomacy that are related to vaccines. The three important and very contemporary concepts that I'm going to deal with. And it's important. And of course, I understand that many of you would not be able to grasp of all the concepts here because time is limited, but I try to gloss over, and let's see how far we can do. And as I start, and I always say that it is this after the Spanish flu and the Second World War, the world has never seen anything like this pandemic. And we also have known something about it from our plenary session, and is how pervasive it was. And as we stand now, the world has witnessed more than 500 million. I don't have the exact number at the moment, but 500 million cases of infections and more than 6 million deaths and 462 million around cases of recovery. So you can understand the pervasiveness, how extensive it is, how severe has it been since the last 2 years. And this brief talk explores the intersections, like I said, between the pandemic, vaccine diplomacy, and migration or migrant population. In doing so, I will try to shed light on three significant stumbling blocks, I will say: the catastrophic implications that the world is going through, and the economic ramifications, the effects on the migrant community, and vaccine development and diplomacy and distribution. And of course, that raises so many questions. And I know that within this time given, I won't be able to answer all these questions and the argument that I am dealing with, and the research question that I'm dealing with. And the presentation might sound like a bit scattered because the ambition is very high and the time is given so short, this way. And if you look at the economic impact, and approximately 90% of the flights were grounded, leaving millions of travelers stranded in transit. And you may ask, how does this have anything to do with migration? Does it have anything to do with vaccines or migration? The reason is every day, more or less 1 million people that used to fly globally from around the world. And when 90% of the flights were grounded, and you can just see its implications. And around 80 million migrants were trapped as a result. 80 million migrants were trapped. What does this mean? This means around one-fourth of the entire population were trapped, whether in the destination country or in origin country or in transit. And this happened. And as a result of the entire the situation, the crisis that we have been going through, and we are still in, a total of $9 trillion in global GDP was lost. Around 9% of the total GDP the world produces in 1 year, and approximately 600 million full-time jobs are vanished. And no one can predict how many are going to come back. We don't know yet. So within this background, we'll be going deep into the discussions. And against this backdrop, vaccine development has emerged as the world's most critical issue. However, and vaccine manufacturing and export remain in the hands of few countries in the world that developed it, and resulting in significant disparity in worldwide distribution. The result, because despite the fact that today around 64%, I'm saying around because we don't really know the exact number, because some countries are not reporting, some countries are really having difficulty gaining the required numbers of vaccines. like I said, 64% of the world population has received at least one dose. This means around 8 billion doses have been administered globally. And every day around 31 million doses are administered. And you may ask me why I'm talking about it. I'm talking about it as compared to the global rate. Only around 3% of the migrants and then the refugees got at least one dose so far. So you can see the disparity. And when I bring in this within this framework of the discussions and the migrant community, if I put them in, what do we see? We see it's not about that. It's not about the fact that migrants are left out or they come from the poorest and poorer country. It's not about it, because the mechanism of diplomacy is the work vehemently and strongly in creating this kind of disparity. This is why we're talking about it. And even just last year, until August 2021, only 0.5% of the migrants received vaccines, less than 1%. So you can imagine, just in August in 2021, and just 0.02% of refugees received vaccines. There are so many reasons and factors why they were left out from these regiments. We can't go into that, obviously, but how vaccine diplomacy and soft power work. And I see there is one paper who talked about the soft power, though from different perspectives. They will talk about it. And this talk engages in decades-long debate over intellectual property rights. It's a patenting life-saving vaccines. I'm sure that most of you know what patenting is all about. And unfortunately, regardless of how severe the situation is, and vaccine production and marketing and distribution have all been politicized in order to achieve the hegemonic power, the hegemonic goals. And both manufacturing and import dependent countries are racing for diplomatic supremacy. But the problem is, or the difference is, one wants to gain hegemony, while the other wants to have the vaccines to save the life of the citizens. This is the difference. One is gaining or vying for gaining supremacy, diplomatic supremacy, or hegemonic power. And the other one is trying to save their life, the life of the citizens. And the powerful countries are attempting to increase the global influence and deepen their ties with other countries. You see how the disease, or the pandemic, and the problems and crises have been used for political purposes, for political reasons. And this talk obviously argues that exemptions of COVID-19 vaccines from intellectual property rights would improve global access and equity. And no country is safe, obviously, from COVID-19 until all countries are safe. It is not because it doesn't know any boundary. That is the problem. And if you say that you are going to vaccinate all the citizens of the country, but within the border of the country, which is good, but the disease doesn't know any boundaries. They can just pervade and go anywhere. And we have seen how fast was it in spreading from China to Italy and from other countries or something. How fast was it globalized? We saw it. So let me share one of the, okay. I try to share a screen. Oh, good. So it seems you can see now. So obviously, and like I said, I have given the background, and please, who is keeping the time, and just give me a signal when I'm running out of time. And the next one is, I have given all this kind of thing. The fundamental thing is, like I said, 6 million jobs have been lost so far. And how many people, 80 million people have been stranded, that I have talked about it. And how does this work in terms of the fact when you talk about the diplomacy, about the economic and the three stumbling blocks that I was talking about, right? And you see, the world has been, after Spanish flu, like I said, after the Second World War, this is the tornado that the world has experienced from Wuhan to the rest of the world. And I said like 90% of the flights have been grounded, right? And how this has been made worse because of the diplomatic relationships, the diplomatic, the turmoil, the superpowers was vying. And the context, since I talked about the context, let me go to I'm not talking about the methodology, because if someone is expert in methodology, we'll be wondering, how was it possible for us to conduct this research? It was a very silly way that we had to adopt to do this research. We had to resort to the WhatsApp, we had to resort to Zoom, we had to resort to this and that. And I know it is the validity, if you go for the validity, it will be really a questionable thing. But we had to resort it. We had to resort it because there is no data. We didn't have any, because the world has never seen this kind of turmoil that sometimes they call it a surreal time. We didn't do that. We didn't experience that. The research, I'm not going deep into that. And if someone has an interest in it, and I will be able to explain more after the presentation, how was in fact that, and how many countries we covered in doing our research, and how reliable was it, and how we made sure that it was okay in terms of research. That is because we had to look into the ethics issue as well. And you see, for the restrictions, of course, it is, if you ask me definitely, was it only 150,000, 150,000 movement restrictions? No, many more. But it is important, it was notoriously difficult to really record how many restrictions have been imposed by different governments, because it happened on and off, this happened, right? And you see, about 200 million international migrants are affected by myriad of restrictions, myriad of reasons. And how have they been? Like when I said 600 million jobs are lost, you know who were the greatest victim on the migrant population, of the greatest victim in terms of everything, in terms of achieving, in terms of buying masks, in terms of having vaccinated, in terms of getting the job, in terms of getting the job back, in terms of going back to the job place, their workplace, in terms of going back to their family, in terms of getting rid of their strandedness in the transit area. So all this happened. This is why my interest now lies in this case. And the problem was, because when I was talking to some migrant in Italy, and what happened? Because Italy really were very, very strict and stringent in their restrictions, and the entire 2020. And there are many undocumented migrants, and they had to buy their groceries every day, but they are not allowed to go. But at some point, the restrictions were a bit relaxed, but you can go out with the documents. But those people didn't have any document. So they were saying, we are not going to die because of the virus. We are going to die of starvation because we can buy. If you go out to buy our groceries, we'll be caught. Better we stay here, eating and drinking whatever we have. At some point, we run out of food and we die here. So this happens when they're talking about the situation. At the same time, I'm not going to talk about this once, because I talked already, right? And it is important for us to know, like, what is the amount of remittances the migrants send today is around $7 billion. around $7 billion, right? So it's a huge amount of money. Obviously, it is only recorded. It's unrecorded, it is a 1 trillion. This means one by 80th portion of the entire GDP the whole world produces, right? So it's $109 billion have been kind of lost. This is a decline from $700 billion. So you see the impact. And I'm sure that Dr. Ferdous will be talking about it, how Bangladesh has been really impacted, particularly because of that. And at some point, for some countries, for example, Moldova, their GDP is dependent, like 49% of the GDP is dependent on remittances. And Moldova and many other countries, around 30 countries in the world, there 20 to 30% of the GDP is dependent on the remittances. And they also share this loss, $109 billion. It is huge. You can understand how $109 billion, if you look at it, it may look like very small. But in fact, if you look, I'm now located in Brunei. Brunei has $10 billion economy. You can imagine how big it is and how severe the impact could be and has been because of this, right? And now the problem is the uncertainties for them, those who manage to go back to their countries of origin, there's entirely uncertain. And if they would be able to come back to their workplace again, why is the uncertainties? Because they really don't know if the job is waiting for them or the employers are waiting for them to rejoin. Because in many countries, the situations, the rules, the regulations have changed dramatically. So they don't know what changes have been made there in the countries of destination. They don't know. They don't know about the accommodations, their savings they had, if any. They don't know all these things. So they have been like in a box of severe and very dangerous uncertainties, right? And what happened? Another thing that happened, because they know that their ways and paths have been narrowed down because of this, because of the new policies, changes. Many regular routes have been like declined or closed or anything. So they are resorting to irregular paths for them to get to their dream destination. It resulted in almost 100 million migrants. They ended up in irregular status. So this happened, all right? And then, like I said already, the anxiety kind of another important thing that I just touch upon, says stigmatization, like xenophobia that happened, because there has always been a kind of crisis between the natives and the migrants. Natives, they have an idea that the migrants are stealing the job, though migrants are taking the job that the natives are not interested in. But the idea, they have been carrying that the migrants are stealing their job. But here, this kind of crisis have become more stronger. And as a result, like around, if I'm not very incorrect, it's around 22% of the events of xenophobic behaviors have increased in the last 2 years. But it was that the curve was like this in just 2021. It was not that bad in the entire 2020. And we don't know yet what is happening at the moment in the ground in 2022, and we'll see. We don't know yet, right? And many things happen like when they try to, because they don't have any, I'm talking about the migrants, they don't have any income. They have run away with their savings, any job, and they are not able to pay their rents. And in European countries, Western world, there are many events that happen, that they were forced out their apartments, their houses, because they're not able to pay the rental. That happened. And many, is not just one or two, innumerable events that happened in European countries, in Western world. due to the lockdowns, there are some interviews. We are not going. I'm not going to read it out because I will be keeping some time for the questions, because I know that many questions will be left unanswered. So I want to touch a bit upon. I hope there will be some questions from the audience. And like I said, it's a kind of scattered kind of slide. So never mind. And it's just the vaccine map, though it was from the, more than 8 months ago, the vaccine map. And if you look at it, and the more south you go, and you see the less vaccine. The poor countries, are less how to say? I don't want to use the term, but the thing is, and these low-income countries are hosting around 85% of the entire refugees. That is one of the reasons. But the thing is, the fight between two countries, for example, when United States came up with their vaccine, and they showed their nationalism, they said that we will be vaccinating our own country first, then we'll think about exporting. But by this time, Chinese and the Russian vaccines, they didn't think about making money or the nationalism. They tried to use it for their diplomatic relationship. But at some point, sometime in 2021, US thought, oh, we are losing diplomatically, because China and Russia, they are distributing vaccines for free of charge to around 67 countries, and they didn't do it. And immediately US changed their policy. No, we don't have to be very nationalistic. While we are vaccinating our citizens, at the same time, we have to have some more vaccines to export, so that we don't lose in the diplomatic fight between or among the other powerful countries like China and Russia. So this is how, because of the diplomatic fight, there is a crack, a very, very clear crack, and we saw. And within this crack, who are the people who got stuck? The migrants are the people who got stuck in the crack. They fought. We become the victims. I guess I stop here and see if there are any comments, any questions from the floor that I'd be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your very insightful talk on the pandemic 19, right? COVID-19. It's been with us, I mean, you know, for I think almost 3 years, 2 years, more than 2 years actually. And from what I heard from you, right, it's also happening in my country. Even, you know, we don't have refugee or migrants, so many migrants here. Anyway, the floor. So do you have any question? It's time for Q&A. You still have like maybe 3 or 4 minutes, I mean, to raise the question, and, you know, you can discuss together here on this floor. All right, do you have any question? You can just turn on the microphone, or you can just, you know, turn on your camera if you like. So let's just, you know, feel free here, because we are in the same field, right? Social science and humanity. So we are human. So let's just, you know, enjoy together here, no matter where we are from. So in which part of the world, we are humans, because we are human and social sciences. We are in the same field anyway. Feel free to ask the question. If you are from Bhutan, for example, you know, see the names here. If you are from China, see, do you have like this or some problems about vaccine? Let me just give you like in Thailand. So not all people got vaccine, you know, I mean, even, and it's quite surprising, you know, here, even Thailand, still a lot of people haven't got, you know, vaccine, even for the first dose. I don't know why, you see. So this is the word equality. It's nowhere here in this world anyway. So you can share what happened in your country. I mean, I don't know where you are from. From right here, I can see the name. I can guess that you are from China and you are from Bhutan. How are the others? Even you are from Thailand, right? Some of you here. For the others, you can share, I mean, what's happening in your country. You have
I'm sorry that Dr. Nipapon and I have eaten up all the time. And I know I would have stopped a bit early. All the time. Sorry about that.
It's all right then. Any question?
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, please. Okay. you
Good
can
morning.
introduce
This
yourself.
is Mr. Pema from Bhutan, and currently doing masters in Rangsit University. As Ajahn know this one, and thank you for the especially for the presenter. We back to Bhutan, especially the vaccine. So we are very fortunate that to be people of Bhutan. So this is a fourth round vaccination is happening in Bhutan. I think, if I'm not wrong, it's almost completing. So this is what I know about Bhutan.
Nipaporn for introducing me. Here, my paper titled The COVID-19 Pandemic, the Price Bangladesh Pays. Here with me, Professor A.K.M. Ahsanullah from Brunei Darussalam, from Brunei University. Here, I would like to start from the introductory segment. I would like to say that the COVID-19 pandemic has triggered one of the most catastrophic in the arena of public health economic crisis in the recent years. The crisis has resulted in an economic downturn that will push millions of people into poverty and exacerbate inequality. Severe disruption here in perspective of South Asian economy, severe disruption in perspective of delivery of normal services such as crucial health and nutrition services have been one of the most serious consequences. In the face of growing human and economic cost, government have stepped up some efforts to address the health crisis, safeguard their citizens, and laid the groundwork for recovery. Not only have people been affected by the pandemic, but also the economy and the society. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a huge impact on all the aspects of society, including demography, religious views, culture, education, and political life. People's lives, health system have been put in peril as a result of the exponential expansion of virus attack. More telling is that some vulnerable groups, just like economic, ethnic, and religious, were hit harder than anyone else. In perspective of Bangladesh, rapid infection seen since March 8, 2022, Bangladesh has been infected with the virus. People getting infected at such a rapid rate that the country may have risen to the top of the list of the world's most impacted nations. Therefore, a very critical time for Bangladesh, meaning that any break or stagnation in education, trade, business sector has the potential to bring havoc to Bangladesh economy. In perspective of governments, actually, as a measure to thwart the spread of the virus, the shutdown generates havoc on the garments industry, on which Bangladesh economy is basically founded. Growth is predicted to slow, poverty levels to rise, which have a detrimental impact on many sectors such as education and health. There are also seen reduction in female employment participation, education deficiencies, and increased financial market instabilities are all potential consequences of the epidemic for industry. Here we can see that in 2020 there is serious downfall in perspective of economic growth. Economic development slowed due to significant drop in ready-made garments industry production because of the insecurity of transportation, commerce, resorts, and cafes. The service industry expansion has been stalled. Despite gradual lifting of border controls in the first half of 21st, preliminary science progress occurred. Supply chain disruptions and unanticipated spikes in commodity prices also observed there. The imports fell, the legal capital movements increased. As a result of weaker output, the trade deficit widened. The implementation of nationwide lockdown, infection tracking, isolation, and separation proved futile. The already overburdened health care system took a long time to respond to the emergency situation. Here, I would like to focus on the objectives. We have two objectives here. First one, we attempt to portray the overall COVID-19 condition in Bangladesh and the impact that the pandemic has on the economy, health, politics, and education. And second one is this study attempts to offer a descriptive assessment of COVID-19 consequences in Bangladesh sector like economic, culture, politics, and healthcare. Then Bangladesh during the pandemic, the COVID-19 outbreak with the alarming rise in cases and high mortality rate continues to be a major public health concern. Bangladesh is one of the countries that has implemented lockdowns in order to reduce the spread and mortality rates. The poverty level soared as a result of major job losses and reduced income. Despite the increase in liquidity, private sector loan growth remained low due to increased uncertainty. Long-standing vulnerabilities in perspective of financial systems such as insufficient capital buffers, bank undercapitalization has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 crisis. At the same time, the economy is likely to recover, mobility restore, enterprise reopen, and exports resume. Here, I would like to focus on the challenges. The pandemic has presented the countries with unprecedented difficulties, putting mankind and the world resilience in jeopardy. Because of their inadequate healthcare infrastructure, financial and human resources, government response capabilities, low-income and developing countries face a more difficult situation than the others. In perspective of Bangladesh, this is the same. This pandemic shows many underdeveloped countries' inadequate healthcare system. Here, the special concern is given to Bangladesh, which is riddled with corruption. Corruption is not only have observed in the health sector, but also in perspective of the distribution of social safety net programs, social safety net programs and social safety net supports. This pandemic has implications for age, race, and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and gender. It is generally known to us that elderlies are more likely to have COVID-19 related complications than the younger people, and death related to COVID-19 rates appear to be influenced by the gender as well. Here the challenges I will discuss segment wise. First one I would like to focus on economic challenges. Economic outputs and activities are not the only thing that cause concerns for Bangladesh. Bangladeshi farmers have been subject to a range of vulnerabilities for a long period of time. They began to lose shock resilience when the agriculture industry began to lose dominance during the early 1990s. Structural upheaval both in perspective of natural and economic. And another currently focusing issue is long-standing vulnerabilities in the financial system such as capital buffers and bank undercapitalization during the pandemic period. Then I would like to focus on education. Many countries have decided to close schools, colleges, and universities for appropriate reasons. We all know that at that period, social distancing was very much essential. In many families are experiencing a significant disruption, such as homeschooling is tremendous shock to the students as well as the children, children's social lives and learning. Um, there are around 2 lakh educational institutions in Bangladesh with approximately 40 million students. And students begin to endure anxiety, sadness, self-harm as a result of the hostile environment. And in perspective of public university, we have observed that most of the students are dependent on tuitions and some part-time jobs. All the opportunities were lost due to the COVID-19 period. Then I would like to focus on health. Bangladeshis experienced panic, tension, social condemnation, and animosity during the lockdown. Disinformation, rumors exaggerated, and fake news propagate across the multiple social media platforms caused alarm among the general public. In perspective of Bangladesh, people are highly depressed with the depressed or impacted with the fake news. In addition, family doctors, clinics, and hospitals in residential and outlying location have been shuttered due to the infection concerns. Only handful people have the resources to maintain social distance policies, have health issues, stock up food, get healthcare, sanitation, and cleaning supplies. But one of the positive things is that handful people also contribute their wealth among the poor. Then social issues. COVID-19 has put many girls at danger of undermarriage. During this phase, social distancing, people reported higher level of emotional support, instrumental support, and loneliness, as well as lower level of friendship and perceived hostility. In perspective of early marriage, our local government representative played a very good role. They stopped lots of early marriage issues through their personal intervention. Then political challenges. Political unrest, internal military action, and political instability are all possibilities as a result of the pandemic.
Outlet dilo kasi ilo na zerga ba.
During the Bangladeshi states increased bandwidth over the last decade and strong political incentives to manage the epidemic without jeopardizing economic well-being. People become increasingly dissatisfied and information confidence gap widened because there are lots of trust issues between government and the citizen. Journalists, artists, students, doctors, members of the political opposition, and activists who spoke against the government reaction to the pandemic or criticized the ruling party were detained. Then combating this crisis, here the way forward. To combat COVID-19, Bangladesh government has taken a number of steps. Firstly, I would like to tell that government has taken a strong social safety net policy to help the poor. In the post-COVID age, Bangladesh requires new implementation strategy actually for economic drivers. With the right policies and quick action, the economic recovery may expedited and its path to upper middle income status can be maintained. The COVID-19 outbreak revealed vulnerabilities in the system. In the medium term, reforms should focus on ensuring business continuity and boosting the resilience. In the long run, improved logistics may help Bangladesh to maintain RMG manufacturing dominance while expanding its export profile. Bangladesh is basically dependent on RMG, so it's need to give them special care. Then throughout the history, we have already seen that hardship has taught us that crisis provides an opportunity to think differently. One of the benefits of this crisis is that it encourages us to re-examine the growth and development strategies, economic philosophy, and long-term plans. The inherent health social disparities of the COVID-19 pandemic are widened the gap between haves and have-nots. Here, the concluding segment. It is critical to have a strategy in place for revitalizing the economy. A paradigm shift in thinking is required to solve the COVID-19 challenges. Finally, because this research is basically dependent on the secondary materials or previously published materials, the conclusions of this study may not accurately reflect the entire situation across the country. Hence, academics, researchers may conduct in-depth research on the topic in order to overcome the constraints or challenges. Given the disparity in vaccine distribution, concerns about new variation and illness progression, it is uncertain when this weird period will come to an end. During the second quarter of 2021, we expect certain countries make headway toward normalcy. Because of the fresh surge of cases, a comparable transformation is likely to occur very soon. The interrelated nature of COVID-19 pandemic related to problem demands a comprehensive approach, a coordinated response, and absence of which further complicates decision making. Here we have challenges regarding decision making, like in some perspective we can see that decision making become delay due to some bureaucratic reasons. We have to overcome this. For a long-term recovery from this pandemic, identifying the right blend of policies and instruments to address the COVID-19 problems and linking them to broader social goal will be vital. That's all from my side. Thank you so much. If you have any question, then you can ask.
I just prefer to be called as Shane. So allow me to share my screen for my presentation. So I'm just going to ask if is everyone seeing my monitor or my screen?
No, it's it. I can see it.
Okay, thank you, Professor. My research is about the new normal research approaches of global governance in ASEAN. And this is my abstract presentation, and I'll be sharing with you the ways forward parts of this abstract research. So the background of the research is that since here in the pandemic, during the outbreak of the pandemic in January of 2020, it is the Philippines who is the first or who is among the countries who have experienced the wrath of the pandemic, who experienced not just a loss or an issue in the public health, but it also affected the global economy. So during the outbreak, the attention on the environmental issues in the Southeast Asia became limited, as the shift to cooperative attention between among ASEAN countries have prioritized the immediate response to global health. And in line with that, according to the United Nations Development Program in 2019, that the climate change issues is one of the most timely issues that among all countries, not just in ASEAN or not just limited in ASEAN, is affected. In Southeast Asia, to define its geographic positions, it falls within the large tropical cyclone throughout the year. And apart from that, Southeast Asia or in the ASEAN region, its first livelihood comes about the agriculture or the agri-industries or agribusiness, which we know that agriculture is highly affected by the environment and the natural resources. And because of the threats of the COVID-19, the attention from giving immediate responses on the global governance to mitigate environmental issues became limited. Actually, it became ignored. Here in the country where I'm currently based or I'm living in the Philippines, environment has been greatly ignored, not just during the pandemic, but pre-pandemic times. Environment has been one of the least priorities that is being observed as a scholar or as a student that we are currently seeing as a challenge here in the Philippines. And by going into the international level or in the regional level, in ASEAN, we can also assess objectively through this research that the environment and the natural resources are one of the least priorities in the global governance. Thus, a new and better normal research approach is highly needed to reform the global governance of ASEAN to meet the environmental needs in the region that is forced to be ignored due to the demand of a stronger public health attention during the COVID-19. Again, I am repeating, it is forced, not intentional, to be ignored due to the demand of strengthening the public health sector during the COVID-19. Actually, when the outbreak of the pandemic have hit here in the region, it's not just about public health. We are all familiar with the economic crisis, with the economic inflation, the economic depression that is being experienced by the ASEAN countries, mostly the developing countries. And even in developed countries, they are experiencing economic threats. So thus, we can see that it is not just about public health that is being strengthened by the global governance in ASEAN, but also the cooperation for economic reform because of the depressions that our economy have experienced. But then, we must not leave alone the environmental issues because at the end of the day, environmental issues like climate change and food insecurity are all part of the development discourse. And when we say development discourse, we know that it is in line with the threats to humanities. Because we can see with the development, it is a threat to humanity. What about flooding? During the pandemic, in 2020, here in the Philippines and other parts of the ASEAN, there are a lot of floods that happens. One of the example here in the Philippines to introduce with you our international friends or international scholars is the Typhoon Ulysses. And with that Typhoon Ulysses, it became a threat to the Philippines, where we can see that it is obviously environmental issues has been ignored because of the vast focus on strengthening the public health and reforming the economy. So this problem of this study that we can see mainly is that we can observe that the limited dialogue on mitigating the existing global environmental issues such as climate change during the pandemic have worsened the environment in the Southeast Asian regions. Hence, a solution for that problem is a stronger call for environmental advocates, academics, and even green groups such as the green movements, the environmental movements, social movements have appealed for stronger policies and strategies for global environment of ASEAN integrations. And just to introduce you with this research, it is actually really inspired to empower the new normal research. And the methods that is being used is through content analysis, whereas such archival documents, news headlines from verified sources, and web content from ASEAN and developmental institutions such as the World Bank, ASEAN Development Bank are collected and consolidated to analyze the results of these studies. In these studies, it tried to empower the voices that has been verified or consolidated by the verified environmental or developmental institutions to check and to huddle them up in their call for a stronger and better new normal research that will help in creating or crafting policies and strategies to strengthen the global environmental governance in the ASEAN region. And now here, as we can come up to the ways forward that is being discussed in the paper, we can see that really there is a limited dialogue on mitigating the existing global environmental issues during the pandemic, which worsened the environment in the Southeast Asian regions. So, the ASEAN global governance have anchored their actions to implement new normal research approaches for global environmental governance through their existing compliance on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which is ought to be targeted or to be achieved by the year 2030, because we know that we have the 2030 target year or the 2030 goals. And through maximizing the globalization in the use of advanced technology for greener ecology. So the ASEAN's response for a better and new normal research approaches to strengthen the global environmental governance is that they will maximize the use or their compliance on the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And we have a lot of environmental targets or environmental goals in the UN SDG, such as the SDG 13, the climate action, the renewable and responsible consumption of renewable gases. And we also have the life below waters when it comes to the water governance. And as well, we have the life on land. So the ASEAN have thought of just maximizing their target goals in the UN SDG as part of strengthening the new normal research approaches for environmental governance. And what does ASEAN tries to do about this is that through the research that they will gather and consolidate in the new normal research of how to strengthen, how to immediately or how to have feasible policies and strategies in compliance to the UN SDG. In that way, they can both contribute to the new and better normal research, and as well, they can maximize the proper use of globalization in advancing the technology for a greener ecology. So as a result, they can help in both developing a new and better normal research and as well help in strengthening the global environmental responses. So the new normal research also suggests a strong recognition to not limit COVID-19 researchers from the hard sciences only, but also to recognize equally among the social sciences research, since humans faces both threats equally, not just in health, but also in environment that also affects the world economy, which global governance plays a key role. So in a mainstream or in a common idea, it is just an assumption that the responses for environment or even global environmental government, that the hard sciences, the scientists, those who are experts in the natural sciences are the only ones who are appropriate and credible to create strategies and policies to mitigate environmental issues. But then the new and better normal research suggests that we include also those among us who are in the humanities and social sciences, because we both faces threats equally on health and on environment. So it is the fusion between and among the hard sciences scholars and as well as the social sciences and humanities scholars in order to form a fusion to better mitigate these environmental issues that the ASEAN has been facing during the pandemic. And in terms of new normal researchers, a transition of a new and better normal research is highly demanded for the approaches on global environmental governance, as research and university academics in the region led to abandon old normal ways in mitigating environmental issues and adopt a new feasible and better normal deal during the pandemic. So about that, abandoning the old normal ways where research is not prioritized, research is not being seen as a feasible solution to mitigate environmental issues, because we are always leaning towards a hard sciences approaches on the practical ways and in the tangible ways. So this research is also used to better let us understand the responses of ASEAN through global environmental governance through the manifestations of the green theory of international relations. And when we say the green theory of international relations, it is the theory of mitigating environmental issues through transcending cross boundaries. The study's analysis on ASEAN's new and better normal research response to redefine the feasible strategies in mitigating environmental issues, focusing on the role of the academics. So this research have empowered the role of academics in both the social sciences and by not leaving behind the ideas and the expertise of those in the hard sciences. After all, it is the fusion of both hard sciences and social sciences in order to promote a new and better normal research by mitigating the COVID-19 issues on the environment. And as a result, COVID-19 become also a
1 minute left. 1 minute left.
Okay, for ASEAN countries to improve strategies on the environmental governance. Hence, ASEAN's academic relations for new and better normal research approaches calls for development. And after all, to wrap up the presentation of the abstract, it is the social sciences disciplines like political science, international relations will get in board to be the architects of the policy making to mitigate environmental issues amidst COVID-19 in the region, as both fusion and tandem of the hard sciences and the social sciences will work together in order to better mitigate the environmental issues amidst the COVID-19 in the Southeast Asian region as a call for a better and new normal research. So thank you so much for listening, and if you have any questions and concerns about the study, you may feel free to do so. Thank you. And thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Niveporn, I guess we should invite questions after every presentation, so because we may forget at the end if we...
Yeah, but anyway, right now just asking me, maybe we can just check if anyone has any question. If not, then maybe we just proceed to the next one because of the time, right? But anyway, to the floor, yeah, we can ask the other, or we can just proceed. I'm not sure if we can remember the question. I mean, if we just leave everything until the end of the session. Anyway, let me ask the floor. Anyone here, do you have any question? If not, then we can proceed to the next presenter. Any question? Or if you don't want just to speak out, I mean, on your microphone, you can just leave the message on the chat box then, so that we can just, conclude and discuss after we finish all 8 today. Any question? It seems like nobody has any question yet. Okay, I used the word yet. Anyway, all right, thank you very much, Kat. All right, Ms. Rina Rao, right? Okay, so next one, let's proceed to the next presenter, okay, from United States, okay, and by Ms. Alma Kaiser, okay, I'm not sure if I pronouncing your name correctly. I'm so sorry. I mean, if I mispronounce your name.
No, you're right.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice to meet you. Okay. And greeting from Bangkok, Thailand. We are in different part of the world anyway. Still, we are here together. All right. So the title of her presentation is Experiences of Displaced Populations During COVID-19. So Ms. Elma, you have 15 minutes for your presentation. All right. Okay. Please go ahead. Thank you so much.
Can you hear me, Dr. Niveporn? Since you can't hear me. Can you hear me, Dr. Niveporn?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Yeah.
Comments on the Filipino presentation. So I was, perhaps you didn't hear me before. So before Elma starts, so let me ask. I have some. Let me make it as the chair. So, Elma, can you wait for a while?
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's not like a few comments. One thing is an interesting thing, interesting presentation in the sense.
Elma Kaiser, I'm an assistant professor at Fairleigh Dickinson University in New Jersey, United States, and it's 12:30 in the midnight almost. But I'm up awake and I'm very, happy to be here and listening to all your presentations. They're so insightful. So I hope I will be able to contribute a little bit into this discussion. So my topic is experiences of displaced populations during COVID-19. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what exactly I mean by displaced populations for you all. So I divided these three categories: the migrants, refugees, and internally displaced. So migrants, we hear the term migrants a lot, and immigrants as well. And people who changed their country of usual residence, irrespective of reasons for migration or legal status. So even illegal immigrants are migrants. They move from one country to another country, which is a little different from refugees. Refugees are people who are outside of the country of origins, but they move because of fear and fear prosecution, because they don't feel protected in their own countries, and because of war and other reasons, they have to move out of the country. So that's that refugee. This is another term, and also they require international protection. And there's another term called climate refugees, which we not hear much about. Climate refugees are people who move out of their country, not necessarily country, but move out of their places of origins because of climate change, natural disaster, flood, deforestation, because of the reasons they move away from their places of origin. And they are called the refugees, climate refugees. And internally displaced people are people who are within their countries, not necessarily, they don't move out of the country, they are within the country, and they seek government protections. And, they're probably also fear of people being threatened for various reasons, but they live within their own country. And in this discussion, I will talk about the impact of COVID on refugees and internally displaced people mainly. And as I just, while describing these groups, I just mentioned the reasons for migration. So there are three major factors that cause forced migration. Forced migration meaning that people who are forced to leave their places of origin. So for example, immigrants who move to another country for better opportunities are not forced. That's by choice. And the forced migration, people who are forced to leave their places of origin due to conflict, armed conflict, civil war, genocide, and development. So infrastructure development, dam, ports, so people, so for example, government wants to create roads or develop big buildings, and they demolish slums and things like that. These for development purposes, so they're forced to move. And disaster is another reason for people to move. It's like for flood, hurricane, earthquake. And so all these three are main causes for forced migration. And I just wanted to talk just let the listeners know about these concepts, because when you think about COVID-19, I want you to think about, the stress these people are having because of the forced migration. And then again, having to experience COVID-19. So the complications, the complexity is much even further. So because of the migration, there are social, cultural, political, economic, environmental consequences. And I've, as far as I remember, Dr. Jannatul also talked about this economic and political environmental issues and related to migration and immigrants. And the population forced to migrate are seldom included in this decision making. So we talked about that. I also, some comments came in the presentation, like we need to have people in the decision making in order to make changes, right? But unfortunately, the population who are forced to migrate are not in any decision making. So the push and pull factors are also, reasons for migration. Pull factor is when people are attracted to go somewhere, and the push factor is something that pushes them away from. So for example, if someone is moving to a better country, maybe the job opportunity is the pull factor, and the push factor is the where they were living, there wasn't much opportunity. So that's the push and pull factor. And low and middle income countries usually host 86% of the 65.3 million displaced population. And only 14% is in United States and other rich countries. So we have this misconception. We think that only the developed countries probably host more refugees or, you know, displaced people, but in reality, more people refugees are hosted by the neighboring countries that usually are not so, you know, solvent or rich. And every minute, this is a 2018 data, probably has changed recently, but every minute, 25 people were forced to flee. That means this, in the recent times, we are seeing the largest populations movement and displacement since the end of World War II. So there are a lot of people are moving around from one place to another. And I just wanted to share some pictures, the global trends of forced displacement, the Rohingya. You know, you have heard of this, the Muslim minority who have lived in Myanmar, also known as Burma, for generations, and they're forced to leave. And nearly 80% of Rohingya refugees are women and children. And interestingly, majority, like almost 80% of the world refugee are women and children. Syria accounts for the world's largest number of forcibly displaced people, and most Syrians move to the neighboring countries like Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, and Egypt, Iraq. Then the new Ukrainian refugees, they are moving to the neighboring countries like Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Moldova. So what happens as I'm now moving towards the impacts. So internally displaced people who are moving from within their countries and are being displaced because of various reasons. And for example, they're facing insecurity and you know, fear. So they're moving within their country. So their housing conditions are overcrowded, poor living conditions. And because of pandemic, you can imagine that it's like the isolation or social distancing is not possible. The mental health, it kind of, again, I talked about earlier, which is thinking about their anxiety level because of the movement and then this pandemic. So together it has become more complex, and lack of sanitation, water, loss of employment, this affecting financial resources. The livelihood has been impacted greatly because of the pandemic. And the global pandemic also impacted the global economic hardship, which has rise in food insecurity. There has been like growing economic hardship has also been linked to a rise food insecurity, and the number of people in need of emergency food assistance, for example, in Latin America, has already nearly tripled since the start of the pandemic. You know, and there has been examples for in Bogota, Colombia, people, like there are almost 56,000 internally displaced people living there, and they began to hang red cloths outside their windows during lockdown to signal that they were in need of food. So they ran out of food, and they were hanging clothes outside, showing that they don't have food. So in previous presentation, Dr. Sanula was talking about in Italy, the migrants, right? They couldn't go to buy food because the fear of being deported. So that was, you can see, imagine this is so connected with this mental health issue because they're in fear of being deported, but then again, they're also running out of food and they're going to starve. So this whole situation, if you think about it for a moment, it's so very complex. It's just not the impact of the COVID in terms of health, physical health, it's also mental health. And the COVID-19 pandemic has highly negative impact on the living, working condition of refugees as well, because refugees, most of the time, they're living in camps, and also working, the working conditions are not great in general, and having this crisis made it even worse. And and also majority, as I mentioned earlier, refugees live in developing countries. 86% of them are living in developing countries, and the country infrastructure is not that great, not that strong. So weak of non-existent healthcare system, lack of access to clean water, school, like there is the infrastructure there in the country is not great to begin with. So having this crisis and dealing with refugees has even made it more complex. So Save the Children estimated that refugees, many of them girls, accounts for around 40% of the 9.7 million children who may never return to school, having dropped out during the pandemic, reversing years of progress in ensuring girls receive an education. So a lot, like they will probably never go back to school, be able to go back to school because schools are closed. And that's a big, challenge. And Jannatul Ferdous mentioned about child marriage, and I feel this is also a consequence of pandemic, because when the children are not being able to go to school, a lot of parents probably, decided that they, and also because of this hardship, they couldn't afford to keep raise them, so they, married the kids off. And also, although the interesting part is when the pandemic hit, we all thought about these refugee camps and people who are living in the camps. Like once the virus hit, there people are just going to die one after another. But in reality, the world's largest refugee camps have yet to report large-scale presence of the virus. So that means, that would be an interesting research to do, like why it has not happened in that way that we predicted in the beginning, why it didn't hit the way we anticipated in the refugee camps. And also the resettlement programs, refugee resettlement programs has really slowed down during pandemic. Many countries have, fully or partially closed the borders because of the crisis. And the data shows that refugee resettlement is at the 2-decade low. 15,425 refugees were resettled between January and September 2020, compared to over 50,000 during the same period in 2019. So you see the big difference between these two numbers, it has slowed down a lot. So there's a big backlog in the resettlement programs, which means the refugees are waiting to be resettled in the host countries. So, and also this is impacting their mental health issues and other related problems. So again, pandemic has a huge impact on refugees in terms of food shortage, limited employment opportunities. More than 3/4 of the displaced and conflict affected people have lost income at the start of pandemic. And in a lot of developing countries, the citizens have lost their jobs as well. So if that, in that case, the refugees would probably have, be in the back burner. They will probably not given much priority in terms of jobs and employment. And yeah, that was, I tried to finish. I was in my email I got I had to do it in 10 minutes. So I tried to make it as quick as possible in time. So
Okay.
my overall, I'm very I work with refugees. I'm interested in refugees and immigrants and also their mental health impacts. So the complexity during COVID-19 has been tremendous, because I just showed you some pictures and some, issues related to the movement of people. So in that case, they already carry so much burden, so much stress, anxiety, and everything together. And when the pandemic hit, it's just all together, it became worse. Also the language barrier. A lot of refugees move to another country where they don't understand the language and what's happening, what's going on in the world. They're not getting the real picture, which also has made it even worse, the mental health issue and the livelihood for them.
All right, then thank you very much. So we still have like around two or 3 minutes, for Q&A session. Okay, yeah. So the floor, would you like to ask any question to our presenter? We still have like 2 or 3 minutes for this.
I guess no question, but a few comments. And interesting because Elma perhaps knows that I am also a student from refugee migration, and so I have also great interest in it. And a few interesting thing, like when we see, actually, we didn't see the numbers of cases in refugee camps. Well, not so. Primarily, if you look at Jatari camps in Amman and in Nairobi, in Cox's Bazar, where the Rohingyas are housed, and actually underreported. The primary reason is because I got to talk to one UNHCR guy, working in Cox's Bazar, and they said if they would say that this is the real number, and the people will be really panicked, and because they are living so closely, and they're like 10, 15 people in one small house, and there are so many cases. There are so many cases, but they actually told them, don't disclose it. It was deliberate. This in Amman, in Nairobi, the largest refugee camps. So this, honestly. But the good thing was,
the death rate maybe wasn't as.
No, yeah. But the behind the scene, they were really vaccinated. So the people don't get it. When they die, you cannot really keep it secret anymore.
Secret, exactly.
This were very high. The death was very low, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like initially, I don't know if you remember, in the UNHCR and the UN, they were talking about how if it impacts the refugee camps, like people are going to die, it's going to be terrible. But that scenario didn't happen, even though they were infected, but the death rate wasn't as much as it was anticipated.
I go to Dr. Jannatul Ferdous if she has anything to say or to make any comments or any question, whatever.
Thanks to Elma Kaisar for her excellent presentation. Actually, it's a very contemporary issue, and I would like to know about the key argument of the paper.
Key argument?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
I think what is the key objectives, or what you wanna find out from this paper actually?
Oh, okay. No, it's just a research on.
Another growing area is Veterans Affairs and working with veterans who have exposure to extreme trauma instances and being able to provide them with some resources and supports and some therapy to help alleviate their symptoms. So the primary levels of practice for social work are broken down into 3 levels. The micro level, which is really working with individuals one-on-one. The meso level, which is working with groups, small groups, families, for instance, and being able to help to navigate any potential issues that could be happening within a small group or a small unit. And then macro practice is a much broader practice where professionals are working within communities, working with government, working with states and even the nation as a whole, particularly helping with the development of policy, and advocacy for those marginalized populations. So here are the primary problems of focus that we're going to review today, just to give a quick overview of some of the pressing issues that have really surfaced within the 21st century. Not to say that they haven't been around for many decades, because all of these definitely have been, but to some extent within the 21st century, we really have noticed these issues come to a higher level of awareness. And so I wanted to focus on these today in review. And so social justice is really striving for equal rights and opportunities for all people, no matter what their religion, no matter what their race, no matter what their sexual orientation, no matter what ability or disability they might have. So social justice is really striving for equal rights and equal access to quality services, education, and healthcare, no matter what background they come from. And so as it relates to what's happening here in the United States, racism has been around for many years now. Within the 60s and 70s, the civil rights movement was pretty prominent here in the United States. But within the last decade, there's been a resurgence of the need for minority populations to have equal rights and have their voices heard from larger levels. And social work is very much a part of supporting these marginalized populations in order to advance their ability to obtain access to the same resources that those of the majority receive. Gender equality, really focusing on the differences between male and female, access to equal pay, access to higher level positions within the workforce. And so there's continues to be much support from social workers to support feminism and the equal rights of women and those of gender diverse backgrounds. Ageism and ableism is really looking at the difference of treatment based upon someone's age and someone's ability or disability. And so social work is heavily embedded in providing supports to these populations as well in an effort to help achieve equal access and equal opportunities. The LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community is also another population that is heavily supported by social workers. And so as a profession, we are very supportive of the advancement of rights and the obtainment of equal rights of these populations as well. In terms of education, and this is very reflective of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, is really striving to provide access to quality education to populations that are oftentimes marginalized, particularly in minority groups. And so it is not uncommon in the United States for those who live in particular areas of the country to not have access to quality education. And there's a clear, very recognizable difference in the quality and level of education that's being afforded to populations based upon where they live, which primarily is associated with race or economic status. High levels of poverty, and since social work's inception, we really have strived to advance the basic needs and meet the basic needs of those living in poverty, and really try to help assist to get those living in poverty to different resources or status in order to pursue a life outside of poverty. And another major area that we continue to see is health disparities and the difference in access to health. Similar to the education, for those of particular backgrounds and who live in different areas of the country, access to quality healthcare is not readily available. And sometimes this can be based upon health insurance coverage, socioeconomic status. And so a lot needs to be done in order to ensure that all people have access to quality healthcare. Violence is the next problem that we're seeing a resurgence of in the US within the 21st century. And I wanted to include here family violence and domestic violence because it has been documented since the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been a noticeable increase across the globe, really, of domestic violence cases and violence in the home. And so as social workers, we are equipped to conduct thorough assessments to determine the level of risk and whether or not a family and children are safe in a particular environment. And we are well equipped to intervene and provide the necessary resources and intervention to minimize the risk and try to alleviate the violence within that family system. Community violence has been on our radar in the past couple of years, and it seems as though every day continues to
You're muted.
Right, so I'm sorry that I have to stop his video clip right now because we have like 2 minutes left for this session, so that we can just have some time to discuss his title here. On his title, do you have anything to share according to the social worker at this area? In this area. Anyone who wants to share your experience in social worker? He's from United States, so that he, as we have seen on his video clip, right? He's talked about each area like LGBT, domestic violence, or I mean the inequality among social workers over there. Shall we share something?
Yes, I would like to share something here.
Yeah.
Actually, this concept is very much significant in perspective of Western world. Here in abstract, I have seen that brief history, how his brief history is different and why it's essential to explain here. And the specific objective of this paper, I would like to know. And how the brief history contributes in his study, and all these comments he can incorporate in developing his paper. I think that's all from my side.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone who wants to share your experience in
Dr. Mutapon, it seems very broad. I guess Dr. Mutapon is from the I guess you can make comments on that, and because to me is very broad. To me is very broad. So, from the abstract, I looked at it and I saw that he intended or intends to talk about the brief history. Actually, it was in the text. It was not about brief history. Something else. Social justice. We understand that. To me, is very broad, and maybe I go to if he has to say about it, because that is, if I'm not very wrong.
All right then. So I think it's time. All right then. So everyone, I think we shall proceed to the next presenter. Are you here? The next presenter, Mr. Right, Unsun Kwan. Are you here, sir? Are you here? May I call you here? Presenter number 4. Are you here? From United States as well, from the same university as the last presenter. Are you here? Mr. Unsun Kwan? Where are you?
So maybe it's a late night, I guess, there. So
they are from the same university, actually. All right. Are you here, Mr. Unsun Kwan? The paper number 4, the title is The Impact of the COVID-19 on Health Among Low-Income Workers in the United States. Are you here? Mr. Unsun Kwan? He's not here.
I think he is disconnected.
He's on the way or something. Shall we?
Look like
now we can move to the next one.
For some minutes.
If he or she comes in, then we can.
It's
Interesting.
time actually. We are quite late. Shall we proceed to the next one, and then we can come back if he's here?
Yes.
Okay, because it's 2
I
hours.
think we should proceed.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. So let's move to the fifth paper. Mr. Abrahan, are you here? Mr. Abrahan?
Yes,
Yes. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I mean, we had to just skip the paper number 4 because I mean the presenter is not presenting yet here. So all right. So let's proceed to paper number 5. Okay, by Mr. Abrahan and also Sasi Patra Siriwato from Jannatul University. Oh, we are here together, right? Okay, welcome.
Yes.
So your title is examining the peace process in Myanmar, a case study of the nationwide ceasefire agreement NCA related to the 2021 military coup. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm giving you the floor. So you have around 12 to 15 minutes to present your paper, and the last 3 minutes maybe is for Q&A session. All right. Please go ahead.
Can I share my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity. It is honored to be represented on behalf of my university, Ranchi University International College, and this is my research topic, examining the peace process in Myanmar, case study of nationwide ceasefire agreement related to 2021 military coup. And my name is Abraham. So here is the context, background, problem statements, and also we see the literature review, research objectives, research methodologies, and also the other questions like why does Myanmar's peace project slowly progress? And is the answer the best solution for ethnic conflicts? And I will end up with the recommendation. So first one is, let's talk about the background and the problem statements. We know that Myanmar has been experiencing the war-long civil war, which happened since 1948 after getting independent from the British. And before getting independence, the General Aung San, who is well known as independent fathers of Myanmar, and some ethnic leader, they made the Panlong Agreement. Panlong is the recognition of the full autonomy and like self-determinations in the political representation. And after General Aung San was assassinated, like they accept to implement the Panlong Agreement. That's why more than 50 ethnic arms organization has emerged until today, and there were too many minor ceasefire like peace process had been, but there were 2 remarkable peace negotiations offered by the military government in different decades. The first one was 1989 peace negotiation, and the second one was nationwide ceasefire agreement, NCA, that happens in 2011. And also, I will talk about the 2021 military coup that really hit the NCA to death. So literature review. The first peace agreement, the 1989 peace agreement, absence to bring the real peace for the Myanmar, even though they successfully persuade like a few arms organizations, time to people, militias, and border gasfolk. Some signatory groups like National Progressive Party (KMPP) and the other Kachin Independence Army (KIA), they fought back with the military after signing the first agreement. Because the reason is that the military deploy more soldiers and like they build more military camp base in ethnic control area. That's why the first peace agreement failed. They broke up, and The second peace agreement, called the NCA, the Nationwide Ceasefire Agreement, has been created in 2011, and they successfully persuade ethnic armed organization, 8 ethnic armed organizations to sign the NCA, and state 13 groups of EAOs, they refused to sign the NCAs. EAO, ethnic armed organization that do not sign the NCA, they face the Burmese military huge military operations in their control area. For example, some signatory group like KNU, Korean National Union, Korean National Union. This organization is one of their signatory group, but they fought with the military after signing. Until today, they still fight with the Burmese army. So research objective to examine the obstacle that made the peace process slowly reaches the target, and to analyze whether the answer is the best solution to ethnic conflicts or not, to work for a peace in Myanmar. So in this research, the research used the qualitative research method and also used both primary and secondary source. And to answer the research objectives and questions, semi-structured interview is really important. So next one, why does Myanmar peace process slowly progress? There are 3 main reasons. The first one is the absence of the Panel's agreement, and the second one is 2008 constitution. Then the last one is the current situation. So first panel conference in 21st century. After the National League for Democracy, NLD party won the elections in 2015, they recalled 21st panel's conference. And also it is known as Union Peace Conference. They held it in September 2016. The NLD, the winning party, brought back all the political parties together and discussed about the NCA and for the future federal democracy. Ethnic armed organizations really have high expectations on Aung San Suu Kyi and her government. However, when they called the conference, 7 EAO, 7 ethnic armed organizations did not attend the conference because some were not invited, and also some were invited as observers. That's why most of them decided not to join the conference. And at the time, most of the militaries and NLD governments, they stay hold the device and rule or tactic. They have been used it for a long time, and the state use it. They want to meet individually. And when they have conference, the other ethnic armed organization like Arakan Army, AA, NT, and LA, the National Liberation Army, they fought with their military on the other side. So second panel conference in 21st century. The first one, it is better than the first one, the first conference, because 15 of 20 from both NCA signatory and non-signatory groups attacked the conference. And totally 1,400 of the representatives from all political parties present at the event. They successfully discard buildings union, which is based on their federal democracy, and also they discard the economy, social security, and environmental issue as well. However, there was no action has been taken after the conference and up to the present. So the second problem, the second obstacle is 2008 constitution. The Myanmar 2008 constitution is created by the military, and it was in 2008. Proportionally, with maximum 25% automatically go to the representative of the military, is guaranteed by both houses. If you want to change, if you want to amend, or if you want to abolish 2008 constitution, you must get at least 75% of spot from both of houses. And also, there are no specific article mention the rights of ethnic, and like there's no article that mention the rights of the self-determinations for the ethnic. Therefore, NCA has made under this constitution. That's why it is very difficult for the ethnic leader to sign the NCA wholeheartedly. So let's talk about the current situation. NLD won. They won 2020 elections, but the military claimed that there was some fraud in election. That's why with this reason, the military took up on February 1, 2021. It was the day that the winning party planned to record the new sections of the parliament. After the military coup, the two governments appears on their stake. The first one is the National Unity Government, NUG. This one was formed by the winning party, the NLD, and the other side is State Administration Council that led by the military leader. After the military K-100 or peaceful protester, NUG temporary president, he called the people to start the people defensive war in September 7, 2021. Therefore, many people defense force has emerged across the country, and also this PDF they found aligned with ethnic armed organization like KNU, KIA, and KMPP. Both governments claim that we have no reason to discuss with terrorists, and most EAO accept the NCA is a dead paper agreement. But we see that some ethnic armed organizations they avoid clashes with the military because they have so many interests. So next one is the answer the best solution to ethnic conflicts. This research study found out the NCA is created by the military dictatorships under 2008, and military refused to invite all the ethnic armed organizations to join the NCA, even though they claim that NCA is all-inclusive peace talk. The reality is different. And also, when they invite the other ethnic armed organizations, they also launch huge military operations on the other area. Military, they just want the all EAO to agree and follow all codes and conducts of the NCA, especially they force the ethnic armed organization to disarmament, demobilizations, and rehabilitations. And another reason is this is just example. Current National Union, KNU, they have signed the NCA. However, after signing, they fought with the military until today. They fought with the PDF force. Therefore, this research say that NCA is not the best solution for the sustainable peace for Myanmar, and NCA is actually dead. So for the recommendation to reach the target of the peace negotiation, the first thing is that they need to implement the Paris Agreement, which have made since 1947. And the second thing is they must change or abolish, or maybe they can amend 2008 Constitution. And also, the military should not take a leading positions in the peace dialogue. There should be a third party. And to bring the real peace through the NCA or other alternative way, NCA must be all-inclusive one, as a good example. And NCA should have a clear guarantee or should have commitment for the ethnics in order to sign the NCA. For those who have signed the NCA and the Burmese military, they both should follow the rule and the regulations of the NCA. Now that we see the most of EAO accept the NCA is a debt paper agreement. Therefore, they should come up with a new approach for the better Myanmar in the futures. So I suggest here that to start the confederation state, which could be a better approach for Myanmar. And that is all. If you have any question, you can ask.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abraham, for your very smooth presentation. Very interesting, actually. All right, you can just stop sharing the slides, and then so that it's time for 3 minutes, we can discuss, and then for the Q&A session here. So the floor, would you like to ask any question, to discuss or share your ideas or your, I don't know, opinions regarding Myanmar situation?
Yes.
Yeah, you can share regarding his research as well.
I want to say something. Actually, here his full paper we have received from your end, and that's why comments is very much easy for us.
And first of all, I'm really not sure what I have to say, that good night, good afternoon, or what, because right now I'm in the United States. I have assigned to attend an executive special program at the Illinois State University in the United States. And maybe I have some sort of the signal problem or something. I'm really sorry about that. I just to tell you in advance. Okay, let me introduce myself. I'm Dr. Satra Kelpang, Faculty of Law, Thaksin University. And today I'm going to talk about the legal measures to resolve vote buying in election of municipality councils members and mayor of the municipality in Patalung province. I will start with the introductions and objectives and go over to research methodology and result and discussion, and end up with the conclusions. Okay, and introductions. Objective of the local administration in each country is as follows. First is to respond to the needs and reduce conflict for people in the localities. 2, to provide speedy public service. 3, to provide effective public service to the needs and goals of the people in each locality. 4, to transfer burden from central government to local administration organizations. 5, to make the local administration organization and institution to educate people on democratic regime of government, which democratic regime is sovereign power to command its own territory. And the Constitution of the Kingdom of Thailand, British era 2560, 2017, Section 3, recognize that sovereign power belong to the Thai people or governed by people, but all people cannot govern the country at the same time. Election as a candidate to be elected by people as their representative is necessarily to perform the administrative duty at the national level. In addition, election as a candidate to be elected by people as their representative, for example, municipality councils member and mayor of the municipality is necessary to perform the administrative duty at the local level. For example, municipality which is consistent with the democratic regime and has a representative at their own needs to perform on the administration, a local administrative organization responding to people's will. And also, election of municipality council member and mayors of the municipality should follow principle of free election, which person entitled towards free to vote for any candidate for election and free to support or to oppose government without undue influence or coercion of any kind which may distort or inhibition the free expression of the elector's will, and principle of secret voting. On top of that, fair election is one in which all political parties and political leaders have an equal right in contrast, the elections campaign for voter support and all electors have an equal opportunity to access to election process and all votes are based on equality. In addition, election administration shall manage typically within time frame. For example, in every 4 years, in case of municipality, and fair election shall reflect electors' will. However, what is widespread practice in election of municipality council members and mayors of the municipality, for example, March 29, 2021, former member of parliament post in Facebook state that congratulate on being elected municipality council members and mayor of the municipality, and please add that in election of 2,472 municipality, which municipality had no vote buying, because it can be believed that there's vote buying in every municipality, but Office of Election Commission of Thailand cannot address collect vote buying. So it shall be deemed value of Office of Election Commissioner of Thailand. And vote buying problem is unfair in election, which cause advantages and disadvantages between candidates with vote buying and without vote buying, and would result in corruption after being elected. Though vote buying is an election offense in accordance with election of members of local assembly or local administrators Act British ER 2562 2019, section 65(1), which offenders shall be liable to imprisonment for a term of 1 year to 10 years or to a fine of 20,000 to 200,000 baht or to both, and the court shall order revocation of such person right to for a term of 20 years. Greatly vote buying problem continuously become more serious. Hence, it's necessary to study legal measure and other measure to solve problem related to vote buying in election of municipality council members and mayor of the municipality. Then we do have an objective as the one, to examine concept theory related to local administrative organization, representative democracy, and election. Two, to examine and analyze legal problem related to election of members of local assembly or local administrator Act British ER 2562 2019 and related law causes vote buying in election of municipality council member and mayor of the municipality in Patalung. It's a city province. Three, to develop law related to resolve vote buying in election of municipality council members and mayor of the municipality in Patalung. Okay, and our research methodology. This research is based on a qualitative study and analysis from documents and interview as follows. One, the study included a study of documents, concept, and theory as a basis for research. For example, concept and theory related to local administrative organization, representative democracy, and election were studied from books, textbooks, research report, theories, thesis using the library and library databases. And two, an informal interview was conducted. The key informants are 5 election commission officers, 5 police officers, including 20 sub-district headsmen, village headsmen, and community leaders. So next we talk about the result and discussion. First, lack of manpower availabilities. The amount of Office of Election Commission of Thailand manpower in Patalung, the city, is available 16 positions, and 4 positions were merely in the performance of investigation and inquiry work and are responsible to manage and control election in nationwide at national and local level, which causes too much investigation workload. However, regulation on election commission for investigation, inquisition, and ruling British ER 2561 2018 grant power to election commission to appoint state agency to perform investigation, inquiry, and collect evidence works which related to assure an unfair election. However, in practice, there's a small number of other state agencies who are appointed by election commission to perform investigation and inquiry work. 2, reactive work. Though regulation on election commission for investigation, Inquisition and Ruling British Era 2561 2018 grant power to Election Commission to investigate, inquiry, and analyze vote by, whether in case of file petition or in case no one file petitions because of doubt, or it can be seen that one committed an offense regarding to election law, and Election Commission know that. However, in practice, Election Commission will only proceed to investigate and inquiry in case of one file petition. This cause in case of vote buying incur and candidate or voter does not file petition, and Election Commission announce election results within 30 days from election date without investigation and inquiry, which makes vote buying free to punish in accordance with law. 3. Determination of punishment for vote seller. There are several reasons why voters agree to accept money. For example, economic. Some voters had the option that voters shall select candidate who give money for vote. Because benefit from money and there's no difference between candidate, this consistent with the research of Somjit Ratana Udomchok, finding that voters agree to sell vote because voter lacks of people conscious. And election of member of local assemblies or local administrator Act British Era 2562 2019, Section 92 and 126 provided that person entitled to vote who demand, accept, or agree to accept money, property, or any other benefit for himself or another person in return for casting a vote for or against any candidate or refraining from casting a vote for any candidate shall be liable to imprisonment for a term of 1 year to 10 years or to fine of 20,000 to 200,000 baht. To both, or the court shall order revocation of such person right to vote for a term of 20 years, which people dare to provide information or testify as eyewitness because he or she is offense of his or her offense and punishment in accordance with law. In conclusion, from the study of relevant concept, theory, and documents concerning to election of members of local assembly or local administrator Act British Era 2562 2019, the order filed as follows. First, appointment of other state agency for investigation work. In accordance with regulation on Election Commission for Investigation, Inquisition, and Ruling British Era 2561 2018, Election Commission shall appoint other state agency to perform investigation, inquiry, and collect evidence works which related to corruption and unfair in election. 2. Proactive work. Regulation on Election Commission for Investigation, Inquisition, and Ruling British Era 2561 2018 grant power to Election Commission to investigate vote buyer who committed an offense regarding to election law with filing petition. Then Election Commission shall delegate Election Commission officer to investigate, search for clue, collect evidence, and arrest election offenders. 3. Repeal determination of punishment for vote seller. Regulation related to the determination of punishment for vote seller shall be repealed, and people will then dare to give a clue or provide information to election commissioners. Okay, thank you very much. Your Honor committees, or ladies and gentlemen, have you got any questions or comments?
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Satra, for your presentation on the election buying, vote buying, right? Very close to us right now here in Thailand, in Bangkok, right? Okay, the floor. Do you have any question or any comments or idea regarding this vote buying in your country? I don't know if your country has this type of thing or not, but you know, as we said, right, in Thailand, yeah. We have be like this here. Yeah, frankly, we have. So any ideas? Any idea to share here?
You want to go ahead?
About cultivate Chinese people, especially South people of Yunnan and Guangxi provinces, can speak local language, especially Thai language. In southern part of China, the people who can speak and understand Thai language are beneficial because they can communicate and learn Thai culture easily. Meanwhile, they can share Chinese culture and tell Chinese stories to Thai people in Thai language, which can help spread Chinese culture and stories in Thailand. So from the theory, soft power, we can see that what is soft power? Soft power is attraction especially stem from a country's culture, political philosophy, or foreign policy. In past, the research paper all almost about Chinese, all almost about foreigners study Chinese. This is the traditional soft power. But after the Belt and Road was implemented, the new soft power in China is the new soft power of China in other countries is Chinese started to study other languages. So this is the reason why this paper focus about this point. This paper wants to know why and how China implemented its soft power policy in Thai language teaching. At this paper, there are two objectives. One is to study the reason why China implements Thai language teaching as soft power under the under the Belt and Road. The second is to study how China implements Thai language teaching in Belt and Road in native. For the method, this article is qualitative research paper, which conducted by document analysis. The type of research method is interpretive analysis. At past, researchers have already collecting 3 official documents like this and to analyze why and how China implements Thai language teaching into policies as above. From the review about the official documents, research found that to truly build the soft power by language communication, the relevant policies of the Belt and Road also support learning other countries' languages in China, like Yunnan and Guangxi province study Thai language. However, in past research, when studying the field of soft power, there was more focus about Chinese teaching for other countries' people instead of studying other countries' local languages for Chinese. So we got 2 points of the results. First of all, the reason why is that due to the geographical advantages and the support of strategic policies in Yunnan and Guangxi policies, Thai language teaching has become an important way to spread Chinese soft power in Thailand. The detail is that Yunnan and Guangxi provinces have the land bordering with ASEAN, and Thailand is a central country in ASEAN region. So the geographical advantage makes China and Thailand very, very close in all aspects. Language exchange has become a very important part of the Belt and Road foreign policies. And also, promoting more Yunnan and Guangxi Chinese to learn the Thai language has become an important means to enhance the country's soft power in Belt and Road initiative. For the second results, how China implements Thai language teaching as soft power at this background. First, on the background of the Belt and Road strategy, a large number of universities and colleges in Yunnan and Guangxi have completed the establishment of Thai language major or Thai language as a second major. At present, there are 19 colleges and universities offering Thai language majors in Yunnan, and there are 20 colleges and universities in Guangxi that offer Thai language majors. So Thai language teaching in Guangxi and Yunnan can cultivate Chinese people who not only can work in Thailand or China, but also can share Chinese stories and culture with Thai people in Thai language. This is a new direction to promote China's soft power in Thailand. So what's the Thai language teaching training program will be? There are 3 types. The first one is whatever the university or college, they set up the double majors. That means Thai plus any major, like Thai language plus international relation, or Thai language plus accounting. Another one is just a set up Thai major, just a set up Thai major. The second one is training modes. Training modes 2+2. Like Thailand have the people who study Thai language, they will stay at China first to get a base Thai language. Then in the rest of 2 years, they will come to Thailand to study like Thai society, Thai culture, or Thai business at the rest of time of them. This is the training modes. The third is about what the courses they study. The Thai teaching courses will be include basic Thai, Thai conversation, Thai voice, Thai culture and society, and so on. So for the discussion, research used qualitative research conducted by document analysis. From review of the 3 official documents of both, this paper finds out that virus industry based on China and Thai geographical location create a lot of needs for labor who is language tolerant. In addition to the Belt and Road strategy, it makes Yunnan and Guangxi policies become a region that train Thai language tolerant. On the other hand, China strengthens its soft power by popularizing Thai language teaching in Guangxi and Yunnan policies. The specific measure set Thai or Thai major as Thai major in university and vocational universities. Also, they'll have various Thai language courses. So finally, we give a conclusion. Due to the geographical proximity between China and Thailand, Yunnan and Guangxi have been positioned by Belt and Road alternatives as the center for the Southeast Asia, which playing an important role in connecting China and road countries in Belt and Road. So China has adopted the policy of popularizing Thai language teaching in Yunnan and Guangxi province, which aimed to share Chinese stories and culture through Chinese who can speak Thai in order to develop Chinese soft power. Finally, as for the limitation of the document analysis method is not efficient to collect the data about Thai language teaching from teachers or students samples, because two of them can give more details about Thai language teaching and how their how they study Thai language in China. So for future research, also can consider use the independent interview to collect more sources. So this is my presentation. Thank you for your listening. If you have some question, you can give my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chen, for your presentation about the Belt Road Right project in China. Very interesting. Anyway, so the floor, would you like to ask any question or to share your ideas regarding Chinese project here? We have heard a lot of this project. I mean, that's why a lot of Chinese students right now, I mean, start learning Thai, right? A lot of people in China want to learn Thai, and then we also have more university opening Thai major, Thai language major for Chinese students. Even here at Assoc University, we also have this plan. Okay, very soon too. Anyway, would you like to share any idea on her research?
Good, thank you. Dr. Jannatul, you want to go?
Good afternoon, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's clear. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Can I just for a while, I just need to fix my presentation because I think it's not, yeah, now it's working.
Yeah.
Yeah, good day to everyone, and thank you for the RSU for giving me an opportunity presenting this paper, and good afternoon to our dear moderator and also to our keynote speakers and to all of the participants here and presenters. So my title is all about ethics position and global citizenship identity of selected first-year college students of a private higher educational institution in the province of Cavite in the Philippines. So my name is Dan Jefferson Lopez, one of the faculty members of Political Science Department in the University of City of Muntinlupa, Philippines. Let me just show you the rationale or the objectives of my paper. So the purpose of this study is to determine if there is a significant relationship between the level of ethics position and extent of global citizenship. So the purpose of this study is first to measure the ethics position, which is actually derived from the ethics position theory of Donaldson, which is actually I'm going to measure first the idealism level and the relativism level of the respondents. And then after that, I will be doing a correlation study. I've done a correlation study to link that with the extent of global citizenship. That is why the main field of my study is all about ethics and globalization, because as we all know, here in the Philippines, we are actually implementing as a required subject to study globalization. And ethics position can actually influence whether a student will accept or not really accepting the process or the period of globalization, because maybe some of the students are not yet accepting the fact that globalization is really helpful for all, no, not at least when we talk about the division of the countries in the world. And the second purpose is that this will be helpful for generation of additional knowledge in the field of ethics and globalization. And then at the end, maybe this is the part that I need to develop first, the recommendation of teaching strategies or enhancement of different activities in teaching the contemporary world. By the way, the name of the subject that we are using in teaching globalization for college students is the contemporary world, wherein with our new educational curriculum, we are implementing that kind of course. And then for the methodology, of course, the theory that I've used to explain this study is first the ethics position by Donaldson, wherein you have to measure first the idealism level and relativism level, wherein the idealism people are actually believing on a moral principle or a universal moral principle, while relativism is that they are not actually agreeing that there is a universal moral objectives or principle. That is why when you talk about ethics, it's about your standards of morality. And then the world culture theory, wherein the people are developing in the process of globalization, they want to accept the fact that they are part of a single community. And for the questionnaires or the research instrument that I've used, this is a more of qualitative study. So it's a qualitative analysis wherein I use standardized questionnaire derived from the ethics position questionnaire EPQ by Donaldson and global citizenship scale to measure the citizenship identity by Stephen Raisin. So these two questionnaires are actually derived from the measurement instrument for social sciences studies. And then for statistical treatment to measure and to find the correlation, I use Spearman rank order, which is actually non-parametric test because, of course, the number of the sample size, the respondents actually failed the test in skewness and kurtosis measurement, wherein the test of normality is not actually normal. So that the researcher led to use non-parametric, which is I think the most fit statistical treatment is Spearman rank order to determine the relationship. So the sample size is 322 students, at least in LPU Cavite, that's the local, the Lyceum of the Philippines University Cavite. And those who are enrolled in 2018 to 2019 only in second semester, wherein they are taking this subject globalization. So the sample size is 322 out of the total population 1,985 first year students. So I use stratified sampling to distribute the respondents accurately. There are 6 colleges wherein I distribute that in my full paper. So you can see there the table of distribution by using this sampling technique, so that there will be an assurance that all of the first year college students will be well represented. So the conceptual framework is that I first determine the levels of ethics position, which is idealism and relativism, and then measure the extent of global citizenship identity using the other questionnaire, and then find out the correlation between these two variables. And after that, for the conclusion and of course for recommendation is to enhance the activities in teaching this kind of subject. And for the results and discussions, findings show that both levels of idealism and relativism have significant relationship with the extent of global citizenship. For your information, in my findings or results, the levels of idealism of the respondents got the score very high for idealism, and relativism is high. And for the extent of global citizenship identity, I got the result high. So in short, those variables got this interpretation wherein they got this rating of a very high and high levels. So in my discussion there in my paper, this revealed that the higher the levels of idealism and relativism, the higher also is the extent of the global citizenship identity. So I think this will be something that is, notable in order for us to understand how we are going to teach our students when we talk about globalization, because I think this is more on the affective side, wherein the students have their own positions, have their own moral standards before accepting. Of course, now when you talk about globalization, especially culture is very sensitive issue. So we have to make sure that the readiness of the students are actually there. And then for the results, no, I just want to show the statistical results. No, as you can see, using the SPSS. So we have the 0.133, and then we have also the 0.137 to determine the correlation between these variables. And at 0.05 level, no, two-tailed, it was found that that is significant. However, now as you can see, it's not too strong. It's not too strong. So, and maybe the result is using the non-parametric test. It cannot be also applicable to all of the first-year students in the Philippines. No? At least, no, we have just an idea for these samples for further studies later on. And then for my conclusion and recommendation, so the correlation test revealed that both levels of idealism and relativism have significant relationship with the extent of global citizenship identity of the respondents. Thus, the study assumed that the higher the levels of idealism and relativism are, the higher will be the extent of the global citizenship identity. So what will be my recommendation? Of course, the study is not absolute. There are some limitations, and we have still to make some improvement about the result. So it is therefore that recommended that the higher education institution, at least in the college level, offering the course contemporary work, should design activities and instructional strategies that will increase the level of idealism and relativism of students, at least for their awareness, no, and to develop their acceptance when it comes to the world culture and, of course, the global setting, to effectively realize the objective of enhancing the global and cultural awareness skills of the 21st century learners, as well as to accept the concept of global citizenship. And as you can see in my study, it's only quantitative. Some of the advisors and also the after consultation with some experts, they are telling me that it's better for us to augment the argument with qualitative data, wherein we can actually make some interview or a focus group discussion from the students to really determine what is their comments and feedbacks about studying globalization at the present period of their academic life. Okay, so that will end up my presentation. It's just only a short presentation. For this is the last. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your research presentation. Okay, on ethics. So the floor. Let's discuss or share our experience on ethics and global citizenship here together before we end the session today successfully. Okay. Any ideas or any comments on this area of research? So let's share here together. We still have time. Right.
Dr. Razan, please go ahead. I will add something after that.
Okay, good. Thank you, Dan. It's an interesting one. Interesting one in the sense, because it's a cavity is in Luzon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's from Luzon.
The only paper that really used purely quantitative research and quantitative techniques, and I'm not very good, but I understand that this is a good effort. And when I looked at your title, that to me, I found like the ethics position on global citizenship identity, like I found it very interesting and intriguing. And you really did some good work, but I will have some, it's more of a comment than as a question. Like, as you did first year student, you did research on first year student, right? And I'm sure that you have your justifications why first year student, why not second, why not a mix? There are, of course, there are some justifications, I know. So can you just explain a bit just why exactly that one, or why was that research for, what was that research for? Is like for your any project or for out of your interest, or
Yes.
just present here, or?
Yes.
Because
First of
yeah, okay.
First of all, in the setting, particularly in the university wherein I've taken the data, the course globalization or the contemporary world is actually required for first-year student. And for your information, in our country, that particular period, those first-year students are the first graduates of the K-12 program in the Philippines, wherein I need to intentionally choose those first-year students because they are the first one to take that said course contemporary.
Okay, that's interesting. But how big is the university? Because your population is 1985. It means first year student 2000.
Yeah. It's 1,985 first year students.
It's big, first year. And you got your sample 322. How?
322.
Able to present my study synchronously. I hope you enjoy this recorded presentation. Low-income workers faced a lot of risks during the pandemic. They were employed in jobs that are at high risk for loss of income. As you see this graph, recent unemployment filing data encompassing January of 2020 until late March this year indicates that millions have filed for unemployment benefits, reflecting widespread layoffs. Most claims were for people previously employed in service industries, particularly accommodation and food services, with an increasing rate for people in retail, wholesale trade, and construction industries. Workers in these industries are likely to be low wage, and they are likely to experience a loss of income. A third of low-income workers were employed part-time and may therefore be working fewer hours if hours were cut. 80% of low-wage workers were paid hourly, meaning if their hours are scaled back, they lose pay directly. Low-income workers who are still employed may face health risks due to the nature of their jobs. Common occupations for low-income workers include cashiers and retail salespersons, many of whom may not be working as businesses have closed. However, those who are working in essential businesses that remain open, such as grocery stores, have been in close contact with the public. Other occupations of low-wage workers, such as cooks and waiters, waitresses, may similarly still be working as restaurants move to delivery and take-out options, putting these workers in contact with the public as well. While a lot of workers remained at home under stay-at-home orders, these low-income workers have been engaged in positions that involved delivery of goods and services. Nearly 1 in 10 low-income workers reported that they are in poor health and were afraid that they are being put at increased risk for serious illnesses if they contract COVID-19. 3.5 million low-income workers are in the health and social services industry, with 1.3 million working as aides or personal care workers, such as nursing assistants, whose jobs bring them into frequent and close contact with patients. Nearly 1 million more work as direct contact support workers, such as maids, janitors, housekeeping and laundry, or food service workers, whose jobs also bring them into direct contact with others. Within these occupations, most are low-income people, and many of these workers are essential workers who are facing substantial health risks due to the nature of their jobs. Most low-income workers have Medicaid, employer-sponsored insurance, or other directly purchased private insurance. Medicaid plays a key role in providing health coverage to these workers because they tend to remain eligible for Medicaid even if they lose their jobs or their income drops due to lost hours. The problem is for the workers who had employer-based insurance. 45% relied on that insurance, but their coverage was at risk if they lost their jobs or income. Here, we cannot ignore these 21% of low-income workers who did not have any health insurance. They fell into the coverage gap and faced high out-of-pocket costs or access barriers to healthcare if they became ill. Many low-wage workers were already living in precarious financial situations before the pandemic and were not able to pay healthcare costs if they became ill. Over 28% of low-wage workers live in a household without a full-time worker in the family, and more than half were living in households whose incomes were below the poverty line. They were already facing food and housing insecurity and worrying about paying bills, which means they were not able to afford healthcare costs if they became ill. Their living situations also put them at additional risk. They are more likely to live in large family and more likely to have an older adult or a family member in the house who has a personal care need. This resulted in workers having poor health, particularly mental health. Even before the pandemic, many low-income workers reported health problems as they could not have timely treatment, had accessibility issues, and problems with medical bills. Because they have fear of taking on additional medical debt, they have not been seeking care for symptoms or illnesses. Based on these backgrounds, I had these two research questions. This study explored how the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted physical and mental health among low-income workers, with special attention to essential workers. Data came from the Household Pulse Survey administered by the US Census Bureau, which has collected information on how the pandemic impacted households. This survey was designed to quickly and efficiently collect data on how people's lives have been impacted by the pandemic. Data collection for these phases started on April 23rd, 2020, and are still ongoing with a 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off collection and dissemination approach. I could use only these 3 phases because the question on whether they were essential workers was added on week 28. Using 15 weeks of data, the study sample was restricted to non-elderly, low-income adults who were employed when they responded to the survey. This study examined their changes in 4 measures of mental health status, frequencies of feeling anxious, worried, having little interest, and feeling depressed. For physical health, I identified those who responded they have any of functional limitations in seeing, hearing, and mobility. I identified them as those with physical health problems. I used an interrupted time series regression analysis to see the changes in health status before and after the intervention period. Since the Household Pulse survey began after the pandemic, I looked at the trend of the pandemic to see if there are other possible intervention points. Like all the other countries, the US experienced multiple waves. A large spike in COVID cases occurred over the winter month of 2020 when people traveled and gathered for the winter holidays. The FDA authorized vaccines arrived in December, but the effects started to show in the spring of 2021. Another surge began in July 2021 as the contagious Delta variant began to circulate and eventually dominate. The end of 2021 was not supposed to look like this, but Omicron variant drove new US confirmed and death cases to another dark winter. At the time I analyzed the data, my data covered only until February of 2020. So I decided to see this period as an intervention point for the time series analysis. This graph shows descriptive changes in physical health problems by essential work status. As you see, the essential workers had a bit different dynamic in health problems. In this wave. This graph shows descriptive changes in mental health problems by essential work status. As you see, higher proportions of essential workers have been having mental health problems during this whole pandemic, and the change appeared to be even worse during this wave. After controlling for demographic and socioeconomic factors, after the observed time, which was the third wave of the pandemic, low-income workers were at a greater risk for physical health problems than before the observed time. Essential workers were at a greater risk for physical health problems than those in non-essential work. After the observed time, essential workers were less likely to have physical health problems. For mental health, after the observed time, low-income workers did not experience significant change in mental health problems. However, essential workers were at a greater risk for mental health problems than those in non-essential work. After the observed time, essential workers were at a greater risk for mental health problems than those in non-essential work. Our analysis result show that the physical and mental health continued to deteriorate for low-income workers, which contracted the findings of other studies that showed general improvement of health status over time. Economic recessions placed a disproportionate burden on low-income essential workers with significant impacts on physical and mental health. During the pandemic and after multiple waves, essential workers were at increased risk of mental health conditions such as anxiety and depression, compared with those in non-essential work. These findings suggest the need to recognize the challenge this vital workforce face in pandemics and have an important public health and policy implication to protect this population. This impact on these low-income workers were notable, urging the implementation of specific measures and supportive solutions in this workforce. The challenges need to be focused on mental health and healthcare accessibility. Failure to tackle these health problems and healthcare accessibility will cause the population's coping capacity due to the constantly increasing proportion of vulnerable subgroups. We also may need to take compensatory mechanisms to protect this population who have been the most likely to suffer from the multiple waves and COVID-19 related restrictions. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, please reach out to me via email. Thank you.
All right, so now shall we have any discussion on her title or paper before we finish the parallel session today, the conference 2022? Any question or anything that we would like to share here on this floor on her paper, on Miss Win-Sun Kwan's paper on social worker, the low-income workers, okay, in the United States during COVID-19 pandemic? Any question or any ideas to share?
Okay, I have something to say. Actually, the topic is very much contemporary, as COVID keeps impacting each and every spheres of our life. Here, the objective is how the COVID-19 plans impacted physical, mental, and health. Physical, mental, and mental health actually among low-income workers, and with special attention is essential. Attention given to the essential worker. Actually, now my question is, who are the essential workers here? And how significant is the impact between control group and non-control group? Okay, and what was the technique in measuring mental health? Because mental health here the key priority, and I would like to know what was the technique actually. The sample of low income worker the sample of low income worker, actually the composition here what was the ethnic composition actually. The composition is not properly drawn to us. Okay, overall nice, thank you.
So much.
Dr. Larson, please add something.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I actually don't have much to add, but only I'm just wondering about one thing. When the COVID cases were at the peak in the US, like the late 2020 and then early 2021, and we saw that around 50 million people in the US was lining up for food support, lining up to get food. Right, at that time, we understand the reason, because there was a job card, they were not in a position to go to work and their salary was cut and all this kind of thing. But the question was, like, we know about Obamacare, and Obamacare that was introduced in 2010, in March or April, I'm not very sure about the month. But Obamacare, the target was to include the low-income groups under the health coverage. And it's still, it is 10 years from 2010 to 2020 or 21, 10 to 12 or 11 or 12 years. And I know that it was scrapped by the next government, the Trump government. But Obamacare, even Trump government came after 8 years, or maybe 7 years.
Yes.
How did that work? And was it not? It didn't work at all to give coverage of under the low-income groups, because if it worked, then we would not see the 50 million people lining up for food support, and these many people didn't have their insurance or anything. They died, and you see the highest number of deaths that only US experienced. Around 1 million. This is recorded. So that is the only question. Maybe I know that might not be the purview of the research.
Yeah.
I understand that. But this kind of question always comes when you talk about COVID, low income, health coverage, insurance, all this kind of thing. And the rest actually are not different from the case in other parts of the world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Asan, for your sharing your ideas regarding this title by Ms. Sun Kwan. Actually, from what we seen right on her video clip, I think she was focusing on the social health worker in the United States who were affected a lot seriously during the COVID-19 pandemic. Actually, if she were here, I would ask her about how she selected the sample group, just like the Professor Jannatul also raised this kind of, issue. And then, sometimes it's quite, vulnerable, and we call it fragile topic. To collect the data. I don't think that anyone is happy to say that I had mental effects or illness or something. I don't know actually. So one other thing that we have to be concerned when we do the research, right? And something like very fragile area of the issue. I don't think that, everyone is happy to say the truth, what happened to our health problem and mental health anyway. So now I think it's time, so we can just come to an end of the session. So any question or any ideas to share, you can turn on your microphone and say something. We have been together since 8:30 actually, right? Some of you have been here, and so we are from all over the world. We can share on the the issue on COVID-19. I'm not sure how long it will last or how long COVID-19 will be with us on this planet, but we have to live with it anyway. So any question or any ideas? So thank you so much for your participation. So on behalf of the organizer on the RSU conference in 2022, I would like to thank the chairpersons here for your fantastic comments, your experience and your presentation actually this morning, and your kindness. To be with us here, how many hours? So many hours for hours, right? And I would like to thank all presenters for your participation, to share your knowledge, your research, and even your ideas here with us here. I got a lot of new experience here as well, okay? And then I would like to thank all the audience here from all over the world as well. Whether you are here in Thailand or everywhere in the world, we are on the same planet, right? And then we are facing COVID-19 together, and I'm sure that we will get through this together, okay, until we can live normally without a mask, okay, everywhere we can go. Anyway, also I would like to apologize for some technical problems, okay, and some inconvenience during the session. And so I'm hoping that we can meet again next year on site, perhaps, right? So we can enjoy more. If we can, actually, we used to have on-site conference, and it was so enjoyable. I had a lot of fun at that time. So I'm expecting that next year we will have on-site, and then welcome to Thailand at that time, right? So you can enjoy, not just, you can see the campus. Our campus is very big actually, and then you can enjoy shopping and seafood and every kind of food in Thailand. Thank you so much for your time here. Somebody is laughing because he knows and they know, right, about how to enjoy in this country anyway. Thank you so much for your kind time, precious time here together. I think quite a lot of hours, several hours together. And thank you so much. And please stay safe and see you again next year. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. Grazier. I don't know how to say in your language. You can just teach all of us here. Thank you so much. Right. Anyway, let me just inform you one last thing. You can access for the video clips, the proceedings, okay, articles, if you are interested, in all sessions, and also maybe your photos, okay, will be uploaded on the website. So please update all this kind of thing on the website. Our website, RSU conference, okay, you can check on the website anyway. If you have any question, you can just email the organizer. Okay, and see you again next year, hopefully on site. Thank you so much and stay safe. ขอบคุณค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะ สวัสดีค่ะ Thank you so much.
All the presenters.